Hey everyone and welcome back. We all set goals, right? But how many of us actually achieve them?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
Well, it turns out there are some surprisingly simple and super effective strategies that can really improve your chances of actually hitting those goals. So we're going to dive into all that
That
today.
sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. So one of the most important things, and this really stuck with me, is writing down your goals.
I'm all ears.
There's a study from Dominican University, and they found that people who write down their goals are 42% more likely to achieve them.
Wow.
Yeah, 42%. That's huge for something so simple, right?
It really is. And there's a good reason for that. When you write something down, you're taking it from just like a thought in your head to an actual action.
Oh, yeah, see.
It's like you're sending a signal to your brain that this is important, this is real.
It reminds me of that story about Jim Rohn, the motivational speaker. Did you ever hear that one?
I don't think so. Fill me in.
Okay. So his mentor basically guessed his bank balance within a few $100s just by knowing that he didn't have a written list of goals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Talk about a wake-up call.
Yeah, that'll definitely get your attention.
So when we write things down, it's like we're activating our brain's filtering system.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. It's called the Reticular Activating System, or the RAS.
The RAS.
Yeah. Think of it like a spam filter for your brain. It basically sifts through all the information we encounter every day and decides what we should actually focus on.
Okay.
So by writing down your goals, you're basically telling your RAS, hey, this is important. Pay attention to this.
So we're training our brains to focus on what we want to achieve.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But what happens next?
So this is where it gets really interesting. Once you've written your goals down, you need to actually engage with them regularly.
Okay.
Review them. Think about them.
Got it.
Some people even recommend reviewing them daily.
Daily. Wow, that seems like a lot.
I know it might seem like overkill, but think of it as just gently reminding your brain what's important. We live in a world of constant distractions, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's easy for our goals to get lost in all the noise. So regular review helps keep those goals top of mind.
So it's like jogging your RAS, keeping it active and focused on those goals.
You got it.
Okay.
And there's actually another really interesting technique that we can use here.
Oh, what's that?
Have you ever heard of asking yourself, what are our priorities instead of my priorities?
Our priorities. Why our? That sounds kind of strange.
And it might seem a little weird, I know.
Uh,
But there's some interesting psychology behind it. When you use our instead of my, it's like you're engaging a different part of your brain.
Really?
Yeah, it's almost like you're collaborating with a team.
Oh, interesting.
And that can make those goals feel more tangible, more real.
So it's almost like we're tricking our brains into taking those goals more seriously.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a clever way to use the power of language and our natural desire for connection. Me too. And, it's not enough to just think about those goals, right?
Yeah.
We need to actually track our progress.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've heard that's important.
Mm-hmm.
But how much does it really matter?
Oh, it matters a lot. There was this huge meta-analysis of 138 studies, and it showed just how powerful progress monitoring can be. The more we track our progress, the better our chances of actually achieving those goals.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like when you're working on a project and you can see how far you've come.
Right.
It gives you that extra push to keep going.
Exactly. It taps into our natural desire to see results, and it can actually make the whole journey towards the goal more satisfying.
That's cool. And, it also keeps us accountable.
Oh, absolutely.
If we know we're going to have to face that progress tracker, we're less likely to slack off.
For sure. It's a really powerful way to stay on track. And there are so many different ways you can do it.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, some people use simple checklists. Others use more visual things like graphs or charts. You can even think about it like leveling up in a video game.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Each step you take, each milestone you reach, it brings you closer to that final goal.
It's like turning the whole process into a game.
Exactly. Which can make it a lot more enjoyable.
For sure. But even with all this, I still feel like there's a piece missing.
Yeah.
What about those unexpected roadblocks, the things that pop up along the way?
Ah, yes. Those are important to think about, too. We need to actually anticipate those obstacles and have a plan in place.
Okay. So how do we do that?
Well, that's where the WOOP method comes in.
WOOP? What's that?
It stands for Wish Outcome Obstacle Plan.
Okay.
It's this really powerful technique developed by a psychologist named Gabriel Oettingen. And it encourages us to not just visualize that positive outcome we want,
Right.
but to also think about what might get in our way.
So instead of just daydreaming about the finish line,
Yeah,
we're also thinking about the hurdles along the way.
exactly. Let's say your goal is to learn a new language. So you'd start by picturing yourself like fluently speaking that language,
Got it.
maybe traveling to a foreign country, connecting with people from a different culture. But then you also need to think about the obstacles. What might get in the way? Maybe you struggle with grammar, or you just have trouble finding the time to practice.
Yeah, that's me with Spanish.
Yeah.
I keep telling myself I'll learn it,
Uh-huh.
but then life gets in the way.
I hear you. That's a really common obstacle. But with the WOOP method,
Yeah.
you wouldn't stop there. You'd come up with a plan.
Okay.
Maybe you schedule specific time for language learning every day, or find a language partner, or join a class.
I see.
By anticipating those obstacles and actually creating a plan, you're much better equipped to actually handle them when they come up.
It's like that saying, feeling to plan is planning to fail.
Exactly. We can't always control what happens, right?
Right.
But we can control how we prepare for it. And this process of thinking through both the positive and the potential negative,
Yeah.
it's called mental contrasting.
Mental contrast.
And it can have a huge impact on our chances of success.
All right, so we've talked about writing down our goals, reviewing them regularly, and tracking our progress. We even talked about planning for those obstacles that might pop up.
Yeah.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle, and it might be the most interesting one of all.
Yeah, this one really gets into how we see ourselves.
Oh.
It's about connecting your goals to your identity.
Identity.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's fascinating stuff. There was this study about voting behavior. I don't know if you've heard about this one.
I don't think so. What happened?
Well, they asked people, will you vote? And they got a certain level of participation.
Makes sense.
But then they changed the question.
Oh, really?
They asked, will you be a voter? And you know what? The participation rates jumped way up.
Wow, that's a big difference, just from changing a few words.
It is. And it all comes down to identity.
Right.
When we see ourselves as a voter, we're more likely to actually go out and vote.
Right. It's like we're aligning our actions with how we see ourselves.
Yeah. Exactly. We all have this deep need for consistency. When we identify as a certain type of person, we're more likely to behave in ways that support that identity.
So it's not just about doing something. It's about being someone.
You got it.
Okay. So if I want to run a marathon, I shouldn't just focus on the training. I should actually start thinking of myself as a runner.
Exactly. Embrace that runner identity. Start seeing yourself as someone who pushes their limits, who's dedicated to achieving their goals.
I like it.
And, it's not just for physical goals either. It applies to anything. Want to learn a new skill? Start seeing yourself as a learner, someone who's constantly growing and expanding their horizons.
That's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So to recap, we've got these 5 awesome strategies. Write it down, review it, track it, plan for obstacles, and connect it to your identity. And it all seems almost too simple.
I know, right? But that's the beauty of it. You don't need any fancy tools or complicated systems.
Right.
It's about understanding how your brain works and using that knowledge to your advantage.
And that's something we can all do. Well, this has been really eye-opening. Thank you so much for sharing all this with us.
My pleasure. I'm glad you found it helpful.
I think everyone listening can get something out of this. And as a final thought for everyone listening, think about the goals you've set for yourself. What aspect of your identity could you really lean into to boost your progress? What kind of person do you want to become? Let that guide you and see what happens.
That's a great question for everyone to consider.
Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.